At 7 o'clock, meeting's called to order. Roll call. Parker here. Shad here. All right. Minutes of August 13th. You read them?
I read them. I make a motion to accept them.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public session. Who's here for public session? Okay, please, your name and
Richie, town resident. I just want to say thanks for putting up all my bags of trash this year. And I was out there today because we got bags of trash. Okay, it's just in a circle between the DPW and the water station. Okay,
it's a lot.
it wasn't from the town fair either. So I also wanted to let you guys know that I snipped the bushes down at School Street. Okay, and got rid of the thing that I can't see through down there. So I don't know who's responsible for doing that. If it's DOT, if it's the owner of the Sterling-Lancaster, that's their property, or it's you guys. But there's a couple of oak trees that are growing from the sidewalk down there. So, you know, I can't see the people that are coming when you go. They can't see me when they're trying to get out of the street. So I'm just letting you know, okay, if anybody has a problem with me snipping it, they can come to the guy upstairs.
Okay.
Martin Songbird, North Row Road, really impressed with the podium.
We really stepped up, right?
Yeah, we know.
I'm here to appreciation to the DPW at Sterling-Lancaster. Ryan recently reached out to me about a grass that was overgrown that needed to be cut down, and it was a gigantic one. It wasn't something we could just dig up on our own. And so really appreciate the way that he handled that. And I knew it was going to take some time, but Lane gave me a call or sent me a note and said, I'll be down to help you move that. And I really appreciated that help. And while he was there, he also cleaned up the line of sight for a neighbor's house. So I just think that it's so wonderful to live in a community where we have our town services, and the people who serve on the board appreciate all that you do, and thank you, Lane, for doing that. So thanks there. And so while some of my neighbors knew I was coming today, they wanted to know when you were going to do the road on.
Don't have a date.
No.
So
We'll get there.
okay, so just want to say
Thank
that.
you.
So thank you for everything that you guys do.
Thanks, Howard.
Anybody else? Public session? Nobody's on that? Okay. Town planner presentation proposed zoning change.
All right, so tonight with us, we have Stephen Wallace, who's the town planner, and Carl Carini, who's the chair of the planning board. And I know Stephen wants to go through and discuss some upcoming proposed zoning changes that'll be at a future town meeting, so.
I would rather pull up a chair and have a conversation, but if you want me to speak from the
That's
podium,
fine.
That's totally fine.
That's fine.
Whatever you're
Want
comfortable
to
with.
join it?
All right.
I mean, come on. We can do this.
So I'm coming up on 2 years here in Sterling, and it's become pretty clear to me that your zoning bylaw needs some work. Yeah, it's outdated. It's full of confusing, contradictory language, and it needs to be overhauled and modernized. Your permitting process is disjointed and unnecessarily lengthy. So I've come up with some proposals that will hopefully address both of those issues. The planning board and I have begun a 3-year odyssey to revise your zoning bylaw and bring it up to date. But if we're going to do it in-house, we've got to break it into manageable pieces. This is year 1, and the focus is on the economic development aspects of zoning. Next calendar year, we'll get into the residential aspects of zoning. And then the year after that, we'll tackle whatever's left. Your sign bylaw, your parking bylaw, whatever's left. So it looks like we're gonna have 8 or 9 zoning amendments to bring to folks at the May town meeting. And we're trying to do zoning bylaw amendments differently. Rather than the planning board writing them on their own, having their one required public hearing, going off to town meeting. The people who show up to town meeting don't know what the planning board's proposing or why they're proposing it. They're seeing it for the first time and saying, well, what the hell is this? That's not the way to do zoning amendments. The way to do them is to draft them early, have multiple public forums where you get the public's input, you explain to them what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you also make the rounds, all the relevant boards, commissions, and committees. That's why I'm here tonight. So we can get into the weeds as much as you want. I could spend all night on these, but I'm just going to hit the highlights. And if you've got questions, we'll dig in. The first change we're going to do is change what's known as the performance zone. You know that zone that is down along Route 140 near our boundary with West Boylston, right over the town line is the interchange. That's been known as the performance zone for about 20 years. And because the bylaw is so lengthy, confusing, and contradictory, it hasn't been used very much. If I have trouble understanding it and the building commissioner has trouble understanding it, how do we explain to applicants how to use it to develop that area? And that area does represent the town's most immediate and best opportunity for economic development. So what we're proposing is to strike the 10 pages of bylaw that go with the performance zone. You can see that we got strike through after strike through after strike through. And we treat the district just like any other district. Add the permitted uses to the table of uses. Add the dimensional requirements to the table of dimensional requirements and be done with it. The uses that we've decided to put into this new district, which we're going to call the Gateway Enterprise District, those were largely determined from public input that we had from a couple public forums back in, when was that, February or March?
Yeah, that was March.
Okay, we had a couple public forums in March, one on a Wednesday night, and then we repeated the program on a Saturday morning for those who couldn't make Wednesday night.
Went very well.
Yeah, all told, we probably had about 70 people there telling us what they wanted for the Gateway Enterprise District and what they didn't want for the Gateway Enterprise District. So if you've taken a look at the draft bylaw online, and I'll leave paper copies with you tonight, much of the new uses, they're intended to be compatible with the town's rural character. And we're talking about allowing restaurants with or without outdoor patio seating, restaurant, takeout, but not fast food, antique shops, brewery with restaurants, along with what's typically allowed by right in your commercial districts. So if I'd have known I was going to be on TV, I would have brought the big presentation maps. But this is a map of the Gateway Enterprise District. It is exactly the same boundaries as today's performance district, but we've taken out 3 properties. The 2 down here at the bottom are DCR properties that are never going to be built on.
Yeah.
So why include them in the district? This property, that's the town cemetery.
Right.
And apparently when the planning board tried to rezone this area a few years ago, there was concern that the cemetery could be developed for economic purposes. We know that. We know that cemeteries are permanently protected. But if that's going to be a hang up for folks, take it right out of the district.
Right.
All right, so that's what we're doing on that proposal. Questions?
Yes, I had one question.
Yes, sir.
Only on the lower part here, this is part of the Wachusett, it's a water supply. And I'm wondering how, this is uphill from it, I wonder how stringent and what kind of state review we have to go through and all that. I don't know, if any. It's just a question.
Okay, I do. Yeah, so a lot of the land in the west of this area is regulated by the State Watershed Protection Act. And right now, there are just 2 properties that are within the new Gateway Performance Zone that would be regulated under the Watershed Protection Act.
Okay, all the way down there. All right.
If you know where the greenery is,
Yep.
and then you go out and back and you look and there's a big drop off,
Yeah.
that's 2 lots. Those 2 lots would fall under the Watershed Protection Act, meaning that if the greenery owners wanted to develop that, they would have to get approval from DCR.
Okay.
DCR would have to give approval to all of them. Because they're within a certain limit, correct?
No, they've got a list, a parcel specific list of all the parcels that fall under their jurisdiction. And right now it's just this one and this one.
Really?
Yeah.
You have a different list than I
Yeah,
do.
that surprises me.
That's very surprising. How do I obtain that list?
I send it to Ryan tomorrow
Okay.
morning.
Because they are pulling jurisdiction on other parcels that are nowhere even near here.
Oh, most certainly. It's mostly this area.
No, I
yeah.
understand that.
It's any,
First and foremost, they're bullies. But they're doing weird stuff to other parcels.
oh, yeah.
So I'm just,
I will be glad to send you that list.
Right there.
It's a couple hundred properties.
that's very interesting.
I know when we do road work, like we look at the map and anything within those limits. And my understanding, everything pretty much on this side of town falls in it. And I know that the limit runs right by Reed Cemetery, because when we permitted Redstone Hill water main, we just were out of it when we were making the connection at Redstone and Cliff
Okay.
Road. We didn't need to file the permit, but.
By now, I've gotten
Yeah.
in the habit of checking development applications for whether they fall in the jurisdiction or not.
Mhm.
If it does, I let the landowner, it's better that they contact DCR rather than DCR contact them.
Right.
Yep.
And they will.
Uh-huh. Yes, they will.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing for the,
Well, I understand that would be, I would think as part of the process, especially if it's just those 2, or it doesn't matter, that you would list that as part of the process. That really wouldn't affect the zoning.
no.
And that's a completely different subject, but it's related,
And I've sent DCR the
proposed.
proposal on this, so that they haven't given me any feedback on it.
Oh, all right, okay,
Interesting.
all right, that's exciting.
All right, so again, this represents the most immediate opportunity for economic development. One more change that we're doing here. Right now, you allow residential development by right in your commercial districts.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, all of your commercial land is slowly being eaten up by residential development.
Mhm.
So we want to take residential development out as a permitted use in commercial districts. That's how it is in just about every town. I don't know why that's different in Sterling. But if you want to keep land for commercial development,
Can't keep on building houses.
it's slowly getting eaten away.
You don't have much commercial.
You don't.
Okay. So that's the first proposal. The second proposal deals more with the disjointed permitting system. Right now, if you want to develop a property for industry, commercial, or multifamily, you got to get your special permit from the zoning board, spend 3 months with them. They give you their list of conditions. Then you got to go to the planning board for site plan review. Spend another 3 months with them and get their conditions of approval. So it's not very business friendly to tie up a business 6 months in the permitting system. 3 months with this board, 3 months with that board. And we run into instances recently where the conditions placed by the zoning board on the special permit conflict with the conditions that the planning board places on their site plan review. And then we're at loggerheads.
It makes it very difficult for the applicant too, because the applicant doesn't know which set of rules to follow.
Right. So what we're proposing is that any use that requires both a special permit and site plan review, that the planning board handle both at the same time. That's a one-stop permitting system for applicants. Planning board with staff, we have access to consultant engineers. We routinely convene town staff to review development proposals. Ryan sat in on a bunch of those. So we're used to dealing with site considerations as part of the site plan review process. So that's the bulk of that proposal, having one entity grant both the special permit and the site plan review at the same time. Questions?
I'm sort of on the fence about it. I think it's a good idea to simplify things. But I think, it's sort of like there's a power shift in the way you do things. So you have to think about that. I'm not saying it's bad or good, but I gotta process it. I really don't know.
We'll understand that we're holding people up for 6-7 months.
I know that's inappropriate.
And I've said this to the zoning board chair. If there are certain special permits that you want to hold on to, that's fine. But you've got to handle the site plan review as part of that process. It's got to be one-stop permitting, whichever board does it.
Agreed. I think that makes sense. Would it make sense to have a joint meeting for special permits? I'm just throwing out an idea. I don't know.
I think that would be kind of unwieldy, having two boards.
Might be fun.
Oh, yeah.
No, just kidding. Just kidding. No, I'm just brainstorming here. It always throws me. There's a reason for having these boards. So as soon as you take one of the jobs away from one of the boards and give it to another, it's
Okay.
I'm not saying don't. I'm saying let's do this with our eyes open.
In most towns, the zoning board handles variances and appeals.
Okay.
Here in Sterling, they handle a lot of special permits. I know that the zoning board, because I've talked with them, they're not completely on board with this either.
Oh,
They understand the reasoning
uh-huh.
as to why I'm proposing this. And I'm gonna keep in my back pocket, maybe we do have a joint meeting where they handle the special permit review criteria. And once they're done with that, the planning board does their site plan. But we've got to do it together in a timely fashion.
Right, 6 months for site plan review and zoning reviews is imbecile.
And that's where we're at.
Okay.
All right, so that's that one. The next one is having the planning board be the special permit granting authority for multifamily housing. And that's simply because multifamily housing requires site plan review. So for the same reasons, there's no reason to hold up a housing project 6, 7, 8 months while both boards do their thing independently and sequentially. We got to start handling those permits. If a project needs both, we need to start handling them at the same time. Okay. Site plan review. It's something that gets authorized in your zoning bylaw. Sterling's zoning bylaw authorizes the planning board to adopt site plan regulations. And that's where they outline their development standards for parking, landscaping, lighting, building facade, massing of buildings, whatnot. Our planning board has no site plan regulations. So we're not able to offer developers guidance on how we want them to design their projects. In my experience, that if a developer knows up front how you want them to design a project, that's how they'll design it.
Right.
But for far too long, it's been left to the whim of whoever's on the planning board at any given time to ask for any type of design that fits their fancy. That's no way to do planning. So we are making some minor revisions to the zoning provision that gives the planning board site plan, the authority to adopt site plan review regulations. We're moving a lot of stuff out of the bylaw and into the regulations where it should be in the first place. We've got a consultant who is preparing a set of site plan regulations for us to speak. We're reviewing a draft at this Thursday's planning board meeting. I imagine sometime by the end of October or early November, we're going to have a set of site plan regulations to post online for people to look at. And that's where they'll be able to see what our standards are for lighting, landscaping, parking, the whole 9 yards.
Steve, will we have a chance to review and comment on those regs?
Oh, absolutely.
I think we'll need it. We have this thing called the municipal vulnerability preparedness. I'm just saying this for everybody. And I want to make sure that this is incorporated in that, in those regular, as far as we're concerned. We're specifically worried about things like water runoff, or storm sewer, if you will, storm runoff, whatever. We're worried about things like that. And we are charged by the town to worry about things like that. So, and that gets to be pretty hairy. And I'm hoping the proposed regulations include that.
Stormwater management is always part of the site plan review.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Conservation Commission is in charge of implementing the town's stormwater management bylaw.
Yeah, but we look at what it does to the roads.
Oh, absolutely.
And then that's what I'm worried about.
That's why every site plan, every subdivision plan gets distributed to both Conservation Commission, DPW, fire, police, building, lighting, Board of Health.
So what, this brings up something else, and Andy's probably going to slap me at some point. But there are 351 municipalities. That means there's 351 proposed ways of dealing with increased weather events, extreme weather events. And it's unfortunate that the state is not very aggressive in what they're proposing for state roads. They're back in they went from 1950s to 1980s. I'll hand them that. But we really have to get serious about making sure that nowhere in Sterling will what happened to Leominster happen. We just have to make sure of that. And that means we have to be a little aggressive about things like design and also maintenance.
Agreed.
So I would want to see maintenance as part of the regulations, a commitment to
One of the
maintenance.
new submission items under the site plan regs is your operation and maintenance manual.
Right.
How are you going to manage your property
Mhm.
on a year-to-year basis regarding stormwater management and landscaping?
And what happens if they don't?
And what happens if they don't?
Yeah. And these are things that we have to just be aware of.
This is all part of modernizing our
Right.
permitting system.
Great.
So your regulations.
Yeah.
Where does the baseline to establish those regulations come from?
Baseline or the authority?
Either or. I mean, how do you come up with it? You don't
Oh.
just pull them out of thin air.
No. Most towns our size have site plan regulations. Some are better than others. That's why we hired a consultant who's put together site plan regulations for
So-
dozens of towns, mostly 20,000 to 7,500 people, towns in our general population.
Yeah, we fit in there. What I'm saying, is there like DOT regs that establish that?
No, there's not even state enabling legislation that outlines site plan authority. It's been recognized by courts as a legitimate function of towns, but there's no state law
Oh, okay,
saying,
so it's based off, an organization that has vast experience with this type of regulation to dream them up. There's no
it's based on 40 years of
experience.
Massachusetts communities
Yeah,
learning their lessons from poor site planning.
okay. No, I was just curious where they start.
Yes, that sounds good. I'd love to see those regulations. I'd be very interested in it.
On the way.
You'll be able to.
Next is something that we're gonna do for our building department, which is update the definition section in our zoning bylaw. Some of our terms are a little vague and need a bit more specificity. And we want to add some terms that should have been defined but aren't. So those have been added to the bylaw as well. I'll leave this with you if you've got any questions on the definitions. Again, this is all online. You can find it on the
Good.
planning board webpage. Let's see here. Okay. Our sixth zoning proposal is updating the floodplain bylaw in our zoning bylaw. The Federal Emergency Management Agency will be issuing new flood rate insurance maps for Sterling by the end of the year. And one of the requirements of the town to use those maps is to update their floodplain zoning. So this is more being put upon us by the state and federal government as a condition of using the new flood rate insurance maps. Not a lot has changed in terms of the bylaw language. It's a bit more expansive, but it's not a great departure from how floodplain zoning is handled now. All right. Let's see. And now we get to the gift that keeps on giving. The state's requirement that towns that abut MBTA train stations zone for multifamily somewhere by right. I love these unfunded state mandates. Love that they apply a one size fits all to the communities affected by this, including towns like ours that don't have municipal sewer, who can't possibly accommodate the density that they're requiring us to zone for. Nevertheless,
Yeah.
Unless directed otherwise, I'm going to try to find a way for the town to comply that's as easy and as painless as possible. We have to zone enough land in town to accommodate 156 multifamily housing units.
Oof. Look at that.
So,
We're gonna be busy.
this is not something we wanted to impose on an unwilling landowner. And we interviewed half a dozen landowners along North Row Road and none of them wanted it. We were approached by a landowner on Ford Road who said, yeah, I think I'd be interested in this. Yeah. I've got 60 acres up there. And I would be interested in having my district be that multifamily overlay district that allows multifamily by right as opposed to by special permit. Still needs to go through site plan review, but it's not special permit at the discretion of the zoning board. It's by right, meaning you've got to allow it. So we did find a landowner who was willing to accommodate that district. He's got 60 acres at the end of Ford Road. As a practical matter, will 156 units ever be built out there? No, because there's no municipal service. He's planning on carving off 10 acres to go with an existing house that's already out there, and then carving another 10 acres off for an estate lot for himself. So that leaves 40 acres. Our bylaw requires that any parcel used for multifamily housing in this district set aside 75% of the land as permanently protected open space. So, starting with 40 acres, we're now down to 10 acres. Now, 10 acres at the density that the state is requiring us to zone at, 15 units per acre.
How many?
15 units per acre, which is impossible without municipal sewer.
Yeah.
The practical effect is Title V. And Title V applied to 10 acres multifamily, we're talking at tops 40 houses, 40 multifamily units out there. So I want to show you where that district is. That's way out here, and I'll pass this around in a moment. Right out here.
I know it very well.
Okay, so you know that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to pass this around. This is where the district is.
Impossible. It's impossible. Stupidest thing I ever heard of.
Well,
Unless you do.
Like Steve said, they designate a one size fits all, and that's not the case. And it's been brought to their attention and asked for revisions, and they won't revise it.
So the next question you're going to ask, well, Steve, what happens if we don't adopt this? We lose our eligibility for a variety of infrastructure and housing grants.
Yeah. What's the time frame on having this adopted? All right,
We have to have it adopted at this May's town meeting. Now, in terms of a timeline for when those 40 houses get built, that's up to the landowner.
Yeah. So
But we have to bring that to this town meeting.
can
Go ahead.
you, does it have to be one parcel, or can you do 156? Can you do 100 here, 25 here?
Yeah, we can break it up.
You just have to find more landowners who would be willing to do that. Right? Okay.
The fact that we found one that was interested in this.
I don't even trust that land to be able to support. Wow.
And Steve.
I mean, I don't.
I know
I'm
this was
looking
spoken before. How does Northgate fit into that?
Northgate,
Southgate, okay, whatever.
Northgate was approved under a comprehensive 40B permit,
Okay.
so it's not considered a by right.
So-
We pitched the Northgate property as our
Sure.
MBTA district simply because it made the most practical sense.
As
There's
sewer,
already multifamily housing out there. It is the closest property in town to a municipal sewer line,
Right.
the one in Leominster that serves Northgate. We tried to go about this in a practical manner.
Sure.
And once we were told that we couldn't because Northgate was approved by 40B and the frontage for the remaining land is off a road in Leominster, I said, so wait, rather than go with the most practical area in town for this district, you'd rather have us zone for 156 units out in the middle of nowhere where there's never going to get built to that density, just as long as we meet the letter of the law. And the state's response was yes.
there are towns in the state that have gone to court over this, and lots and lots and lots.
Nearby Holden is one of them.
Our neighbor is one of them,
Yeah.
and, they haven't really gotten anywhere, to my knowledge, anyways. I don't know if they've given it up yet, or they're just gonna.
I think it needs a multi-pronged approach. I think we all have to talk to our elected
We
representatives.
have talked to our elected representatives and
All of
made
us.
the case that the law as written and the standards that are in it, you can't apply them to a town that doesn't have municipal sewer. The density simply it doesn't work.
It's coming up with a dumb idea because you're trying to build a lot. I mean, that's.
The goal is laudable. There is a housing crisis. We do need more housing.
Right.
But let's be practical about this. And they're not exactly. All right, so that's that.
So those are the 8 things that is coming to town meeting.
Oh, I'm not done.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
The hopefully the last one will be, something sponsored by the building department. They want a limit on, accessory uses and, buildings. Right now, we don't have any limitations on them. They want to, tighten that up a bit. So that's what they've got.
You're talking accessory dwellings, ADUs, right?
No, we're talking accessory buildings and uses. We're talking about garages, barns, and
Well, it's a farming community, so you have to be careful.
and then this will be the last one, I hope. About 3 weeks ago, the state legislature passed the new Affordable Homes Act. And within it, they outlined standards for accessory dwelling units. Those limits or those standards, we're out of compliance with them, our accessory dwelling bylaw. So I'm working with town council right now to identify where we're out of compliance and what we can do to bring ourselves into compliance with the law. That'll be the last thing for zoning that I bring to town meeting. This is a whole bunch. I may recommend to the select board that we have one town meeting just to hammer out the zoning on this, because as you can see, the list is quite lengthy.
Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of noise.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I was impressed that this town actually had an ADU bylaw anyway before. I mean, we did it. It just wasn't good enough, or it wasn't proper enough, or whatever. But I don't think there'll be much pushback on that.
No.
Just changing language.
I anticipate the big pushback to be on the MBTA district.
Yeah, me too. Because it doesn't make any sense.
The others, I can make a decent case for. The MBTA absurdity, I'll make my pitch that we're trying to make this complying as easily as possible, but it's gonna be a hard sell.
We have a question?
Yes,
Pardon?
ma'am.
Yeah, no, yeah, it would be good. Come on. That way we can see you. You're on TV.
So I was just site regulations.
Louder. Mhm.
Point of clarification on the site regulations.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure I understand on the site regulations are going to be for specific zones, or it's just,
No,
Or it's
anything
going
that
to be-
requires site plan review.
so is there any leniency on the different areas or zones? Like, because they're not all the same, right? So
Right.
they're not all going to require the same regulation. How does that work?
That's why you put them in regulations as opposed to zoning. Once it's in zoning, if you want to deviate from that regulation, you've got to get a variance to the zoning board. If you have them in a set of regulations that the planning board uses, the planning board is empowered to waive certain regulations on a case-by-case basis.
So it would be up to the petitioner to select, ask for a variance if it's
No, they're asking for a waiver.
a waiver. Okay.
So that's a lot easier.
Thank you.
Well, all right. There you go.
I did read the
Louder.
article. I did read the article.
Thank
okay,
you.
In the landmark, okay, about how Hogan is fighting back,
Mm-hmm.
okay, with this MPTA baloney. Okay, so what can we as citizens do to fight the state?
Give us $3 million for a lawyer.
Well, we can
That
inspect all of
is
the sources.
ultimately lies with your select board as they are managed.
So what if they won't listen to us? We have enough going on in this town with, we've got rid of the deep observation hold on, okay? We don't need the craziness here in town with these other high-rise buildings, okay? There's conflict of interest going around this town in every board in this town, okay? Everybody wants
This
this
agenda
thing
item
because they're
is
on
not
this
open
board,
for discussion.
okay? So
It is a discussion,
even
not
though
public.
the board may have been born there,
Right.
people from Lancaster, they already got a gigantic junk of houses being built over by the railroad tracks down there that don't even have a basement. We
Laura,
don't have
Laura,
this stuff.
Laura, this is not, that you're making good points, but this meeting is not a good place for that conversation.
Well, I'm putting.
You're
it up there
venting,
so
I know.
people
Okay, but we can think about it,
so
yeah.
they don't have like that, okay?
They do.
We live in this state, you know what, I've gotten 2 phone calls this year from a survey from the state, okay, asking me if I'm moving out of the state this year, okay? got a lot of people moving out of the state, so what do you need all this housing for? Okay, if they're moving out, what do you need the housing?
All right, no, wait a minute. We are way off. We are way off. We are just talking about proposed zoning changes
So,
and
If you have
Do these-
concerns about
do these-
the town complying with the MBTA district, you've got to talk to the select board. Until they direct me otherwise, I gotta try to find a way for the town to comply.
because he's just trying to follow state law and state.
This is above my pay
just
grade.
because
Right.
it's a state law doesn't mean that we the people can't fight back somehow.
But none of the people in the room here are empowered with doing anything about it.
Well, to me, just answer the question so
Right.
that everybody in the town knows that you need to come to the select board meeting.
Correct.
Give your thoughts to the select board.
That's right.
Okay, so if the select board aren't gonna,
Don't assume that. Don't assume. Just, Laura, we gotta go because we got a lot of other things on this.
While I'm here.
Yeah.
I do want to let people know that we are going to have a public forum to discuss all these zoning proposals
That's important.
and more.
That's important.
Thursday night, November 7th, beginning at 6:30 upstairs at the Old Town Hall.
Okay. November
7.
7th.
November 7th, Thursday night.
2 days after the election.
I figured people will be softened up by then.
Good luck.
We'll all be drunk, one way or another. Thank you so much for coming. I assume that's it. Do you have any comments? Does anybody have?
Isn't that enough?
Yeah.
Are you done or?
Yeah, I'm done, and I'm gonna leave all these materials.
Okay.
with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That's all. You've done a lot of work. You guys, thank you so much.
Like,
I think we got one copy.
I'm seeing if there's multiples or whatever.
It's okay. We can hold on to it and even pass them on.
You go ahead, continue on. I can thumb through this and listen. to it.
Okay, next item is year-to-date budget reports. Surprisingly great news.
What you have in front of you shows, totals for Warrant 5, 18.52% of the year. You know, early in the year, not a ton to report on. Things are, moving along as they should be, particularly on the DPW side. Water side, as we know, is a little more volatile. We use a lot more electricity and a lot more chemicals in the warmer months, which are July, August, which is reflected here. Obviously it was a nice hot summer, especially in July. So, we've ordered chemicals a couple extra times. We've also are quickly chewing up our distribution repairs line item. As you can see, we've already 50% through that. We've had, some costly repairs that we've made, but also instead of in the past, maybe separating a lot of those parts and whatnot, into different line items, they're all in one line item. So it looks a little bit more dynamic, but
Right.
Overall, we're doing fine.
I was very happy to see these myself. What do you
Rather
think?
than fit them in when there's not a, every couple warrants. I don't think it makes sense to do it every warrant, but
No. You got any comments, Andy?
No,
Okay. No comments. Next, columbarium design, locational layout.
all right, so, as you guys know, and as we kind of briefly touched on at the last meeting, we have $50,000 in this year's capital budget, came out of sale of cemetery lots. We put back into the cemeteries in the form of constructing the columbarium. I provided you guys with these renderings at the last meeting, so now that, it's actually on the agenda, we can kind of discuss it a little bit more. So I've been working with a company called Watertown Engineering. They are in fact not an engineering firm. They are a supplier. So it's just the name of the company. And they're when I reached out to I think there's probably 200-300 towns on a listserv that I reached out to. I got this name back 90% of the time for people where people had sourced their columbariums through. So I met with the gentleman. He came out and took him to Hillside Cemetery, and I said, "Hey, we kind of like to put it in this center area." He said, "You have this beautiful brick patio here. It's literally waiting for a columbarium around the outside." And I hadn't even thought about it, so I was kind of blown away how perfectly everything kind of fits. One of the, kind of staples to a columbarium is having that gathering place in front of it to have a small service, set up a table for an urn. People can stand on firm ground. They have the benches here if they want to sit, which they're already in place. So really, it's like this, we call the cross, was almost built for future columbariums. What I am proposing here is, I know you can see this drawing.
Right.
So we're proposing to do this in phases. Phase one, which this money that we have now would be for 2 units. That's what we can afford. I think that's a good way to start. However, I propose, or he suggested, that we put in all 4 foundations so that everything's level. It's put in at one time. We're get 1 concrete truck to fill them all. And then in the future, when these are successful and selling, we can easily add 2 more, same style, and it would end up looking like this in the end. For the first 2 units, I wouldn't propose to set them up like this. I would propose here and here, which are facing the street.
Cross corner?
No, next to each other.
Oh,
But
okay.
facing the street, not, this is looking down a Cemetery Row. 62 is this way. I would propose putting them here and here for the first 2, and then the second 2 would kind of box it in. These fall within our budget. There's some specs in here for these particular units. Gray, granite, everything's polished, except for the top, or the sides. I mean, you can see kind of like how it's that rough granite. Looking at, kind of the quality difference between these and some others, these all have double doors. They have built-in what's called drip seals. I've learned a lot about columbariums to keep the water out. It comes with a myriad of spare parts, spare doors, all kinds of other things. So I think these are, pretty nice units. Some things that come along with the columbarium is we're going to have to work on adding some language to our rules and regs for it. We're going to have to price them. It's very important, talking to a number of towns, that we make rules on style and quantity to be engraved on the front so that everything kind of looks consistent, seeing that it's just pretty much all words once it's full. And, just to give you guys a rough idea on price, I gave you a quick study we did. We called these numerous towns that have columbariums. As you can see, it varies significantly, but even picking a lower end for a unit, right? So $1,000 for one of the niches, putting in the 2 units that we're proposing this year would yield $64,000 in revenue. And that's on the low side of cost. For a $50,000 investment, that's pretty good. And remember, that's on the low side. And any money that these generate go back into the cemetery, paving the roads, building new sections. You know what I mean? They go into the sale of cemetery lots. We pull out of the sale of cemetery lots for things like this, and improvements to the cemetery. We don't use it for drainage work or buying trucks or whatever. We use it on some equipment for the cemeteries, lawn mowers and things like that. But just to, kind of make sure we're all clear on that. So, I know I kind of rambled a lot of.
No, that's fine.
Discussion or.
Well, and just as an aside, I was in Johnson City, Tennessee, with my better half, and we were looking at the old cemetery that his father used to manage, and they had put this exact unit in.
Okay.
And I think it's really important, let's just put it this way. It's really important to have uniform engraving on, and that, because it seemed like nobody thought of that. And we'll just leave it at that. But the unit itself is really beautiful. It was very well built, and you know how picky I am. So I was very impressed.
Just one more aside, just for, like what I would propose as a schedule. I would not propose that this go in this calendar year. It probably wouldn't go until the spring, would be my guess. So we would have the winter months to write our rules and regs and get all that stuff.
And the pricing.
Yes, exactly.
Do you guys want to think about it? Have recommendations? If you'd love to hear
I think it's a great idea.
it.
So I like the idea, we're gonna do it, and we're set on the 4 units.
Just, we can always expand to other areas,
Well-
but here, 4.
If we're gonna do the 4 units, I like the idea of getting the foundations in,
Yes, sorry.
mobilization costs. It's gonna save us a little bit of money, not a lot, but it's gonna save us. Looking at this picture, my thought is, the 4 units, move them back slightly. All right, and we're gonna start with up 2 with expansion to 4. But if you move the 4 back, your next expansion, I don't know if this works, but could be replacing those 2 benches with 2 more. And keep the kind of octagon type of
Okay.
thing going, just my observation, something to think about.
That's a good idea.
I like the location. I like it.
Yep.
The patio's in really good shape, the bricks.
Yep.
They look nice. It was redone by an Eagle Scout some years ago.
Well, is that it?
You guys good if because so I can lock in pricing on these. My plan would be to purchase them and then you're locked in that pricing essentially and then have them set.
Purchase them in this year's budget.
We have the money in this
We
year.
have the money.
Oh, we
Yeah,
already have
yeah.
the money right now.
Right.
I mean, purchase them now, to place them in the spring, kind of deal.
To lock it in.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I would think locking in pricing is a smart move.
So do we need to vote on this?
The lock
I
in.
think we should.
I think so.
Yep.
You know.
I make a motion
I'll second it.
to, lock in the quote and move forward as presented in front of us.
Yep. I'll second. All in favor? Aye. So,
Beautiful. So I'll get that.
We're off and
Like I
running.
said,
okay.
We won't do any construction until the spring. We'll do the foundations ourselves. They give us plans and stuff for that.
Again, I'll leave the
Yeah.
decision up to you, but with thoughts of maybe moving them back.
I think that, I'm gonna have them draw that up for me.
Because,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't wanna have them too squished together. If you move them back, make them uniform. Just a thought.
Yep.
Okay. Number 7. FY 26 capital budget discussion.
Okay, so believe it or not, we are entering budget season. It seems like I give you guys a binder and then we make another one. So, you know, we're in the very preliminary stages at this point. I just wanted to get in front of you guys and chat with you guys about it before I started, you know, and see what you guys had for input. So what I provided with you, for you, is the budget last year as submitted and as received, pretty much.
Right.
So the first column is FY 25. You can ignore that, right?
Right.
We already have that. This is what we proposed in FY 26 in the column for FY 26. So you'll see we have, you know, the first 2 pages of DPW, the next page is water. A lot of what drives our capital plan is our vehicles. So in this big page right here, I have provided you with an updated vehicle replacement plan. So if you remember, when I first got here, which believe it or not, Next month will be 3 years ago.
Right.
We kind of put this plan together and using industry standard replacement intervals, assigned replacement years to these various vehicles that we have.
Right.
We were very, very, very far behind, and I'm happy to say and proud to say that we've pretty much caught up. We're doing quite well on our vehicle replacement plan. So I'm going to rattle off the next 5 items on that plan, and I kind of want to discuss them. I'm going to lean heavily on Andy's input in this regard, and I want to remember that no decisions need to be made tonight, but I need to be able to start making some calls and pricing some things so that the numbers that I submit in a capital budget actually make sense. So the next 5 items on our replacement plan based on the intervals are the Volvo loader, the chipper, one of the pickups, the asphalt hot box, and truck 26, which is a 6-wheel dump. Okay, and I just rattled those off. I don't think it's worth at this point going beyond those because we're not asking for all those things anyways. So right off the bat, I think for our discussion's sake, we can eliminate 3 of these from discussion. The pickup truck I'm going to put on there, ready to be replaced. That's going to go on there. The hot box is going to go on there. We need a bigger hot box. That one, it's fine, but it's small. It's definitely been used. It's at the end of its useful life. In the chipper, it has about 3,600 hours on it. It's fine. We don't need to replace the chipper right now. It doesn't get used every day. It's used in emergencies. Obviously, it'll remain on the plan, but in FY25 or 26, we're not in need of a new chipper. So that leaves the 2 big ticket items, which I would like to at least discuss and get opinions on, which are the Volvo loader and truck 26, which is one of the 6-wheel trucks, 6-wheel dumps. Volvo loader is a 2006. It has 12,419 hours. It was painted in 2018. Looks good. Runs well. It's important to note that it has all the equipment for our roadside mower installed in it. That was the machine that was chosen to have that mower installed. I will make a note that it is a pre-emissions vehicle, which is very helpful to us.
Yes.
Less maintenance on those types of systems. That's my little spiel on the mower.
70 or 90?
70. Yeah. No obvious issues with it. I don't know that it's gotten motor work done. I honestly don't know. Do you remember it ever being cracked open? All right.
Talking the Volvo, right?
Right.
And
So maybe we can stop there. What?
this is the Volvo?
The ball. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Obviously a very big ticket item.
Yep.
You know, it's a good machine. It really is. You know, obviously in my seat, I try to balance replacement intervals versus what, you know, I'm not going to run the machine to the ground and then come to you and say I need a loader because then I'm down a loader and that's a major issue. We need to replace that loader before we're down the loader.
Right.
So it's balancing that out. Andy, like I said, I'm definitely interested in your opinion.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
I can talk about the truck if you want.
Now,
Okay.
so a loader of that size, life expectancy before a major, get into that in a second, is 15,000 hours. So
Getting there.
we're very close. Where
Well, are we?
got 12,419 hours on.
All right, so we're 2,600 hours away. How many hours is that? How many years is that?
Hold on, I'm doing it right now.
That's all I'm saying.
We put about
But I agree with you.
about
I'm here.
700 hours a year on it.
Okay. All right, keep on
The
going.
closer you get to 15,000, the more you have the potential of a catastrophic failure. Anything beyond 15,000 hours, loader of that size is considered borrowed time. That machine new, I don't know, 300,000, 350. I'm just,
I asked for quotes last week. I didn't get them before the meeting. I was hoping to get just rough quotes.
I'm just spitballing because that small of a machine, I really don't know the cost. You can have a major done on it, which includes motor, transmission, torque converter, rear ends, hydraulic pistons, or just about half to 60% of the cost of new. However, you loosen the machine for 4 to 6 months. So there's,
If we're lucky. In today's day and age, it could even be longer because.
correct,
shops are
because of all the nonsense after COVID with parts and so forth. At 700 hours, I mean, yeah, or 700 hours a year, it gives us roughly 3 years, but we're close to possibly experiencing a catastrophic thing. So,
And-
yes,
You brought up the transmission. That's the one question we have. We've been having some issues.
no, I know that. So yes, we cannot afford to be down alone. Unfortunately, this is pre-emissions and pre-DEF and all that horse pucky. But what do you do?
And now that we put the mower on it, it's getting used, it's getting
Right.
used more now
Yes.
because the mower's on it.
Yep.
It's out more.
It's out more.
700 might go up.
It-
That's
it-
the average over 18
So
years.
it's out more hour-wise, but those are easy hours. The hard hours are on the motor head, not the loader itself, because it's just creeping back and forth.
Transmission wise, whereas
And I know that, so I believe that, and I hate to get involved with anything with the new emissions. They're horrible, they don't work, our technology, it sucks. They haven't figured it out yet, it's horrible. However, here we are, we're stuck between rock and a hard spot, we need to look at it. 100%,
we can't be down, we
No.
can't be down a loader for 6
and,
months.
and that's the problem. We lose the loader, and do.
Right. So I don't want a decision on this tonight, but I can see with us using the roadside mower, I can see the validity of adding that third loader and not getting rid of this one right off the bat.
I
That
absolutely
would
can
be-
too.
Because it would be
So-
a huge thing for us.
So we throw this thing in a municipal bid, being a 2006 with that many hours, what are we gonna get? 20 grand for it?
Right.
25 grand at
We
best?
can gain a lot more than that by because if you think of it, and granted, this may change sometime in the future, but we have the sand pit down there.
Yep.
If the loader's down there, we have no loader here. There's been numerous times where I've wanted to stage material on a job site and leave a loader up there. You
I
can't
will-
do that because we need to have a loader here
I
for an
will agree.
emergency,
Agree.
you know,
You don't have to sell me,
So
I
I
agree
just wanted to
110%.
that out there,
That
that I would probably propose.
what you're gonna get for a trade, or what we're gonna get on municipal bid for this particular machine, it's not worth getting rid of it. It's worth keeping it. And then when the John Deere goes, rotate them out.
And then even salt, we could leave a loader at the salt barn while we're plowing, which now we have to
And-
come back, take a plow,
Right.
put a bucket on, load the trucks, you know what I mean?
And- Not if, when one of those loaders goes down. Now you have, not a backup, but you have something that, if we go down on one loader, we're doomed. End of story.
Yep.
So for the 25,000 municipal bid, for 15 grand on trade, I agree with you. You don't have to
Okay.
sell me on that,
Just wanted to float that out.
100%.
So with that conversation, to me, it kind of takes out, we don't need to talk about 26 this year because we're not going with both. Let's put it that way.
No, I don't,
They're both big ticket items.
20, my opinion from what I know of 26, I think we can squeak another year or two.
Right. The only concern really is the frame. 16, which is the sister truck to 26, got a paint job, in,
But
2018 as well.
I mean, 26 still passes inspection.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's fun. To me, I wouldn't worry about the frame. We know we're gonna be getting rid of it in 2-3 years at the most. Ignore it. But
And honestly, with all the stuff that's going on right now, I don't even know if I could get a price for a new truck.
yeah, you could get a price. You
Well,
can't get the truck.
Right. I know. So what,
And keep in mind, loader's a different animal. Keep in mind, come January 1st of this year, life as we know is gonna change. And it's too soon to order this truck to get it before January 1st. So we'll deal with this some other time. Life as we know is going to change.
I know. So for vehicles on the DPW side, what I'm gonna, start pricing moving forward with is a loader, a pickup, and a hot box. So those are the 3 pieces of equipment. I don't think we need to add any equipment this year. I don't have any big ticket stuff I want to add. We don't need to replace any more mowers. We're in good shape for that for a little while. So I'm gonna kind of stick it at that, for equipment wise. Some other things, we'll have a little bit of money towards 62-140. That is moving along. Cemetery wall, we had some money on that. I should have, results from that evaluation, hopefully for the next meeting, and I can put it on the agenda. That's my hope.
So this, $100,000 number.
That's a
is just
placeholder.
a placeholder,
I threw that in
okay.
last year.
Good.
Same thing with the Sweat Hill drainage.
Right,
Also a
got it.
placeholder. I should have numbers for that. I spoke to all these people. As you can see, we had the hot box, the loader, and the chipper on there. I'll keep the chipper in there for some future years, just because at some point we're gonna need to replace it. What do you think is a good number of hours on a chipper? I know it's a little bit out of your wheelhouse,
Well, a lot of the shippers that I've worked on, once they get around that number, but they're not municipally maintained, they're hillbilly maintained. Once they get about 3,600 hours, they're pretty beat up.
so ours is in really good shape.
However, yours in really good shape. That mower, I mean, that's a 10,000 hour mower.
Okay.
So I wouldn't stress about thing can blow up tomorrow. But
Anything good.
looking at the numbers, I wouldn't stress about it.
Yep. I also put in there what's called a townwide risk tree assessment. So this is something that I learned about when I took my tree warden class. Pricing, I think it'd be.
We learned about it in 08.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pricing would be significantly lower than what you see here. Again, a placeholder. I got my numbers late last year. So what this entails is this would be called a level 1 assessment. You don't even get out of the truck. Okay. You're driving down the road with a professional at slow speed, and they're taking marks on town-owned trees that are posing a risk. And essentially what it would do is classify those trees, and it would get you some sort of plan as like, okay, these are the ones we need to look at for takedowns, limbing, things like that. It's a windshield survey, absolutely. Anything beyond that is we have to really break the town up into a lot of small chunks. This is where you start. You know what I mean? And kind of see, okay, we have a ton of trees on Princeton Road that are clearly dead. A certified arborist, this is what he does. The guy I would propose to do is a great guy. I've actually called him a number of times with some tree questions in town. So something I'll get a good price for. It's going to be based on road miles probably.
Yep.
And just another
How many
database.
miles of road do we have in town?
90.
How many?
90
90?
of town-owned roads.
Right, not Route
Doesn't count
12.
12 or
Yeah.
other privates. Yeah.
Question about that.
Yep.
Just as an overview. My understanding is the DPW is in charge of what's on the ground and light department's in charge of what's in the air. Nope. Okay.
So,
So, I mean, I say that again.
yeah. So essentially, I am the tree warden.
You're the
So
tree
I'm in
warden.
charge of everything in the right of way. All right. When it comes to removals, we have an agreement with the light department or an understanding that we take care of the trees on the non-wire side. They take care of the trees on the wire side. It's just kind of an agreement that we have. It seems to work.
Yep.
Keeps our guys out of the wires, which we want nothing to do with, nor are we trained for it. And it kind of works out.
Okay.
But as the tree warden, I'm in charge of all the trees
Oh,
in the town right away that are over an inch and a half diameter. So the one other thing I would like to put on the DPW capital is I would like to get designs for the future of Hillside Cemetery. Hillside Cemetery, for the sections that we can go back, like we just finished, is full. I say it's full as in all, it's all established. There is the entire area off to the right that had trees planted, drainage put in, that no one has a drawing for what it was actually supposed to look like. And a lot has transpired since then, where we might want to make some changes to the way it was designed, whatever that stuff was done. Doesn't make the drainage obsolete. It still drains low spots in the field. However, I doubt all those trees are going to stay, right? Those trees were planted 20, 30 years ago. They're big now. It's hard to dig around big trees. And we want to both maximize our lots plus make the cemetery as, beautiful as we can. So I'd like to hire somebody to come in, survey it, and give us a proposed design for the future of that cemetery, because before you know it, we're going to be building roads over there.
Yep.
Just like we just built 2 more roads in the back earlier this year. So I'd like to hire a consultant to do that one.
yeah.
That's what I'm proposing on for right now on the DPW side. If you guys have any other things you want to add, I mean, we can only do so much. I don't want to, we can't ask for the moon. If you look, we have for a lot.
Yeah,
Now, it was kind of a death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yep.
Nothing was over $65,000. So it was a low, a lot of small stuff. But with the loader, we got to kind of be careful of how much we ask.
So we got to maintain our fleet,
Yep.
and regardless of how we maintain it every year, we got to update it, because if we don't,
Great.
it will fall behind. Rather than asking for 500,000, we're going to be asking for 2 million. You have to continually update. There's good places to update. There's things you can wait on. I understand that. But you have made unbelievable progress since you've been here with our fleet, and it shows.
Thank you.
Wow.
Getting the pickups turned around was a big.
And
big-
I've heard in the last year a lot of comments that, wow, fleet's looking good. So I just want to say, thank you. I hear that. And I also want to say, Blaine, I didn't mean to blackball you on the loader. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, it's fine.
I just started rambling.
No, it was fine. I was right in there with you. All right, as far as the loader.
I thought of it after,
I just wanted everybody I just want to take a quick break to mention that a couple years ago, we didn't have this.
a couple of years ago, we had nothing.
Right. And it's so easy to get complacent about having detailed plans. This seems to me common sense when you have a fleet of this size to be managing it like this. I just wanted to thank you again for doing that and for taking this approach. And this is just a tiny bit of the kind of planning and that's going on.
Really helps me.
Well, it helps us all because, it actually makes it easier to sell from a common sense standpoint, simply because of what Andy just said. If we don't do it, then we got a couple $1 million worth of replacement coming up when everything breaks. And that's, I'm just really impressed. So,
Well, I would ask for one thing, not the next meeting, not whatever,
okay.
but at some point in time, if over here in the notes.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is more for me than probably anybody else. But if we could get the hours in,
So yes, I did some,
I know you did some,
because
but
that was what we needed for the
so
meeting, but
in our
yeah.
discussion, the very first thing I wanted to see was on the 544 was the hours
The
on that.
544, yeah.
It's maybe twice a year you update the hour.
Right.
More for me,
Yep.
Dean will understand the hours more so than Blaine, but
Yep.
also so we can look at it, if we can look at that twice a year
Right.
for our own knowledge, I
Right.
think it would be very helpful to me.
Because the deer definitely racks up harder hours.
Yes.
For sure. I more in the winter. Like you said, the Volvo's running all day,
I mean,
when it's running. The deer isn't.
it's not too important to get the hours on the 1.5 ton road.
No, I understand.
But, alright, you get it.
I got you. And on the trucks, the big trucks, I get hours and
Yeah,
miles.
yeah.
So moving on to the water side, couple things, I'm sure we'll have some money on the water source. Hopefully we'll be getting really close to, we'll have a property maybe that we can swap with DCR or something like that. I would still like to do a feasibility study on the Kendall tank. And getting that neighborhood more pressure. So that's that Adam Taylor neighborhood. It should have been built in the first place with a booster station. I would have put that on the developer at the time. Fortunately, that wasn't done, and now we're kind of stuck with it. I would propose that water buy part of that loader. Water should own a portion of one of the loaders. Water should own a portion of the backhoe. I think water should own a portion of one of the trucks, just like water owns a portion of the excavator. You know what I mean? All that stuff gets used for water. Water owns a portion of my truck. It's a 75-25 split. I kind of, that's kind of the way I set it up. And then finally, I'd like to replace truck 3, which is the blue utility body. That truck has like 130,000 miles on it. This would complete the replacement of the water vehicles, but everything kind of where we need to go. I would build an identical truck to what we just built for the Foreman truck. Another utility body, it would pretty much be exactly the same. We're very happy with that truck. And then again, I preach consistency all the time. I like things looking the same-ish, close enough to the same. We will also be putting in money for water meters. We need more meters to finish out this project. I'll have some good numbers as we get closer. And then there's a small project that Mike would like to do at the Osgood tank. There's a large valve in the ground. It's called an altitude valve. It's in a pit. It's failing. It's beyond its useful life. It needs to get removed and a new one put in, but they're expensive.
Is that a shutdown?
Have you?
Yeah.
Really?
Is that a
It's a
shutdown?
drain. Well, it's shut down because the valves don't work. So shut down, drain the tank, drop in new valves in the altitude valve.
Do we know when that valve was put?
Yeah.
Wow.
What?
Do we know when the last time that valve was replaced?
You guys replaced it or did you work on it? To mine,
I could have sworn we replaced it.
oh, really? This huge, yeah. So typically they get rebuilt in place. This one is worn out to the point where water's leaking by all the different seals and stuff. and
So
it's
the
not-
housing's no good.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not
So
rebuilt.
it
Yeah.
needs to be.
So you got.
it's
What
not-
is the consequence if this valve fails?
That's a better question for Mike. What I know it's doing now is it's causing the tank to overflow at times when it shouldn't be. So it's allowing more water into that tank that it shouldn't, show up in the morning, the thing will be blowing out the overflow. Because our system being on one pressure zone with 3 tanks scattered across the town, we have to use these altitude valves to keep the right levels in the tanks. It's, if it failed, it's not catastrophic, it's more just annoying. But when you have to monitor a system 24/7, 365 by hand, it's
Your time is best
It's
spent
not really-
elsewhere.
you know what I mean.
That's So,
what I'm proposing on the water side. Right?
well, that seems pretty straightforward.
So I'll
Okay,
start putting some pricing together on that stuff. Cool.
okay, we're on project update.
All right, I'll start moving. All right, so exciting news on the DPW facility. We have our first building committee meeting next Wednesday, 6 p.m. here. I'll be setting the agenda for that early next week. It's going to involve a walk around of the building. They'll be electing officers, chairman, vice chairman, etc. We'll give the Weston and Sampson report, and then we'll talk about future, meetings and how we want to handle it. So that is finally moving. I know it seems like an eternity ago that we went through all the interviews and whatnot, finally moving in the right direction. 62-140. So I provided you with just some very conceptual sketches. If you remember, maybe last meeting, maybe 2 meetings ago, I told you guys that I've been spending a lot of time on this project with the state and with our engineers, and we are arguing to try to remove some of the very large pedestrian access requirements that come with these type of projects, which includes 10-foot wide shared use paths, sidewalks around all sides, in an effort to lessen the impact to the abutters, because essentially the state came back and said this design would cause irreparable harm to some of the abutters, to the point where they, even if we owned the property and we had the right of way, it would cause so much property value degradation. They had some fancy word for it. So anyways, we redesigned it. I have a meeting with the state next week, just for their opinion. A couple of the changes, and again, these are far from final. You'll see this includes a mountable island, which I like. The state doesn't like it. I like it. It gives trucks a chance to hang their tandems up on the island where a car wouldn't need to, right? So you're slowing down the cars. I'm not worried about the trucks speeding. I'm worrying about the cars speeding. So the trucks can navigate it, and it allows the cars, to kind of slow down. You'll see it doesn't have the giant sidewalks, particularly on the north east side.
Yep.
There's no pedestrian access up there. We're kind of arguing that, hey, you just replaced that bridge not all that long ago, and you didn't put any pedestrian accesses on that bridge. So why do we need to do it over here? The other side of it is
The state's
much like Stephen was just talking about. They want what they want, and so we're trying to balance it. Our engineers are doing a good job with it, I think. Kind of getting that balance, and we'll see what they think about these concepts. But I just wanted to share that with you. They both have, as you can see at the top, 5 sidewalks, not anyway. All right, campground culvert. So we are finally, after 2.5 years, at a good point in the water level over on Campground Road that we can start looking at replacing that culvert. We funded that about 2 years ago. I've kind of dragged my feet for a while because last year it rained constantly. We were, almost overflowing the road at that point. Just 1 year ago tomorrow, we had the 9 inches of rain in Leominster, September 11th. So I've been in contact with DCR about the permitting. I think we're going to be good to go. We might start that in the next couple of weeks. Pipes ordered. It should be delivered maybe end of this week, beginning of next week, and we'll start coming up with a plan of how we want to manage that pipe. It's 2 twin 48s, big culvert for us. I have faith that we can do it. But so that we'll be shutting down that section of road for probably a solid week. I would say do the work. We're gonna take our time with it.
Plastic or RCP?
Plastic.
Plastic.
Yes. And go from there. So scheduled road work, Merrill Road has actually been reclaimed and paved. So that's the end of Merrill Road, that little piece we added on to. Thanks again to DCR, we were able to pave a huge turnaround at the end onto their property. They were cool with that. So our radio equipment's at the end, the town radio equipment for fire, police, DPW. So we now have a pull off for that. We have a nice place for plows to turn around, fire trucks, you name it. A couple driveway aprons we got to take care of up there, but that's it. Today they started drainage on Elliott Road. We're doing about 700 feet of drainage on Elliott, all replacing old CMP with new HDPE. When it comes to production pipe like that, it just makes more sense to have Lazaro do it. They can bang it out in a couple days. It would take us significantly longer with our equipment, which is fine. We don't need to be set up for production pipe. We got a really good price on pipe replacement. So that's ongoing. As of right now, reclamation of Elliott and the section of Pratt's we're going to do is scheduled to begin on the 23rd of September. We have 2 meetings with the railroad this week. We have one tomorrow on the computer, one Friday in person, with Lazaro and All States Asphalt to hopefully put us all on the same page for work close to their train tracks. It's a lot of work but it's going to be well worth it. So that's hopefully starting with that. Water side, our deadline for corrosion control is 10/16. So I've been in communication with DEP. I know I sat here a couple months ago and just expressed my frustration with the lack of communication. So I have been trying to communicate with them. It hasn't worked all that well. I don't get a lot of responses back, but at least I have my stuff in writing that says, hey, I asked you this question 18 times before the deadline and you never answered me. What do you want me to do? That's my mini soapbox. On the Redstone water main, so we had that pre-construction meeting. They are slated to kick off the end of the month. That's Ricciardi Brothers. They're going to do about half of the work this year and the other half in the spring. So their plan is to get, I think it's roughly James Patton, or maybe it's Cider Hill, not Cider Hill. No, Timberlake. Cider Hill. Timberlake's up there. Roughly there, and then they pick it back up in the spring. They stop around Thanksgiving time, which is fine. They tie everything in at the end of the winter, and what that might do is delay paving a little bit. I want these trenches to go through a winter before we reclaim and pave, and the second half wouldn't go through a winter. So we'll kind of play it by ear. That to me also might be a good candidate for a 2-part paving job. We can pave from like Rough Road down, and then if that water's done, it'll have been done for a couple of years, down by Davis, down the Lancaster line, and then we can pave the other half of following year. So we can talk about that as we get closer. On the trucks, the truck 27, which is the small water pickup, delivered. It's downstairs. Cap won't be delivered for it. We bought a cap for it. We won't have that till November, but we're going to start putting lights on it, upfitting it, radios, all that fun stuff. Truck 9's back from paint. The dump body was picked up. We have the dump body, and Andy's still plugging away at the leaf box. Getting closer. We got doors on the back, and right now he's building the doors that'll go around the leaf chute. Then we get it painted and get it used. So that's a pretty cool unit. And then we picked up our small paver 2 weeks ago, or less than 2 weeks ago, a week ago last Friday. So we'll be doing some practice with that, a little bit of training, and we'll put it to use slowly but surely. Paul and I were kind of talking. We got, there's the dirt road to the right-hand side of the building at Hillside. I think it'll be a great place to kind of play with that a little bit. It's like a milling, gravel, pothole road. So we might try to do either some gravel or a thin layer of pavement over there and kind of practice with it. But the nice part about it is you can run dirt through it right in the yard, pick it up and put it right back in and just keep practicing.
Keep in mind, the box is great for putting down grinding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what I have for the project.
Okay. We're on superintendent's update.
All right. So as a reminder, tomorrow we have a joint meeting at 6:30 in the Buttrick Building, with the Select Board and the Recreation Committee as well. This is going to discuss a number of recreation topics, including first off a field study that was conducted by an outside consultant for the Griffin Road Field Complex. And then after that, we'll get into the issues we've been having with the ball fields and any other number of recreation topics to discuss. There'll also be an update from the recreation director on general recreation topics mixed in there. So just know that it's not just, it's a joint meeting, but it's got a number of different recreation-based topics.
Joint meeting by 3 different departments.
Correct. Included in your packet is the MVP plan for the town that was requested by Blaine for your perusal. Having this plan allows us to apply for the MVP grants, like the one that we applied for the pump station that we unfortunately
Didn't get the money. Yeah.
This past weekend marked another successful Sterling Fair. Our crews assisted with mobilizing some of the town assets, including picnic tables, bleachers, et cetera, along with setting up the water. I want to personally thank Mark Bruno for his work in coordinating the efforts this year. He did a fantastic job. I think the fair was great. I went on Sunday. It was very smooth, very well attended. So thank you to Mark for being nice and easy to work with. We held our first annual DPW field day on Friday, August 16th. We had 3 teams of our staff that completed in various challenges involving our equipment, and they all required them to work as a team while also using their operating skills. I thought the event was really successful. The guys seemed to have a good time, and we're hoping to make this an annual event. And I might steal Paul's thunder a little bit here, but I just wanted to give a shout out to our entire staff across all our departments. We have a wide variety of projects that we completed this summer, and I think it really highlighted the diverse background that we have working here. You know, sometimes when you go to a company or a place, it's, oh, this is all I've ever done, you know, is XYZ. You know, we have a kid who's been bringing in his own masonry tools to work on bases. We have, you know, welders, we have landscapers, we have a little bit of everything in our department. And I think our foremen have done a really good job assigning people to certain tasks that have both allowed them to use their skills and allow our jobs to get done efficiently and get done well. So I kind of sat back, you know, a couple weeks ago and I said, you know, that's huge to be able to have that diverse group and have our foreman who can realize it, assign those people, and they're excited to put maybe some of their specialty type skills to work. You know, we might all be labeled as driver laborers, or there might be, you know, a lot of people labeled as driver laborers, but they have different skills and they enjoy using them. So I think, you know, once again, we have a nice steady crew. It really is what makes our department tick.
Yep.
You know, you ask any private company, it costs, what is it, 5 times more to train a new person than it does to retain an existing person. I think it really shows it's an important thing out. So that's my quick PSA. That's all I got.
Hey, Paul, do you have anything? Okay. And we have future agenda items?
Sure, I'll think of something.
Yeah, they'll come up. They'll come up. Okay, so if there's no other, nothing, Andy?
I'm good.
Nothing? Okay, so we're adjourning at 8:38.